You do just what you like. You make me feel good.
Hello, check.
That was the input.
And it's the camera recording?
You make me feel
Alright. Three, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Stay Grounded podcast. We are here with yours truly, Philip Kulikowski.
Josh, what's my favourite Christmas carol?
Oh, I forgot the name of it.
The boys are back in
Back.
town.
The boys are back in town, and we're here with Josh
A
Dacey.
little bit of chicken fried.
Cold beer on a Friday night.
That's us right now, baby.
And you're here with another one of yours truly, Brandon. Thanks for tuning in.
Where is he?
Look, as we start off every episode with a bit of gratitude, that's the most important thing that goes around the world. So, grateful for all of you. Grateful for all of the supporters, all of the people who are currently engaging, commenting, liking, sharing. I know we say it every week, but it really does mean a lot.
We're over 90% to our goal for the t-shirt giveaway. I think 8 more followers.
Come on.
Share it with your mum.
Come
Share it with
on.
your siblings. Share it with your friends, with your co-workers,
Your lover.
with your grandparents. 8 more followers and one of you's getting a free t-shirt.
We're so
And a follow
close.
back.
We're so close to the 100 limit. Last week we recorded, I think we
lost a follower.
we mentioned the fact that we lost a follower.
Fake friends.
But since that week, actually, since calling out whoever that was, and we had a bit of a one-to-one with the person who unfollowed us, we've increased by about 6 followers.
Shout out to the followers. Did we find out who it was, did we?
I didn't look.
I didn't even know we knew.
I haven't been keeping tabs, to be fully honest.
So you just lied to the audience.
No, all I know is the person who unfollowed has really lost out in life. Because, like, if you're not on your Instagram once a week and you don't see, a Stay Grounded clip, my week personally would be a lot worse.
Appreciate all the love on the clip that I posted today that I'm getting with the Sabrina clip.
Shout out to Sabrina once more.
Good engagement. Good to see that we've got some women's basketball fans out there.
Yes, sir.
Man, it's been a big week, sorry. Maybe not in terms of just stuff that's happened in the world, but I know just in terms of our personal life. And from what we understand, you guys really enjoy getting to know us on a bit of more personal level. But it has been a big week, and no major world event has really occurred this week. I think the only thing that stands out to
The
me...
Lakers had that 20-point comeback in the fourth against the Clippers.
That's
You
one
forgot
of
that.
them, and Darvin Ham's hands were out of his pocket for sure.
First time I've ever seen his fingers.
But the other thing that stands out to me, and I want to chuck it over to Josh Dacey to kind of open up the session, is
Hey.
Miss Taylor Swift in Sydney.
Yes.
Talk to us about that, Josh. How was that? What was that experience like as two people who have not been to Taylor Swift?
I hadn't either until this time last week.
Talk to us about it.
I am a different man than I was 7 days ago. But it was beautiful. Very good experience. So I was in Sydney for 2 days. So just a quick trip. Taylor was that night, Saturday night last week. And what a marvelous show. She puts on a spectacle. And you might have seen that video of that girl crying on TikTok outside the arena. Unlike her, I was in the stadium. But I had a similar reaction to the folklore era, which is the reason I was there. But it was a great weekend. She puts on a beautiful show, and I know the girls really loved it. Kristen in particular was screaming the whole night. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, changed man.
So
Shout out to You Belong With Me. Top song of all time.
Facts.
give honestly such a W song. But give us a bit of context now. Was this Sydney show number 1, 2, 3? I know she's done a few.
She's done heaps. So I think she did 4 total shows in Sydney that weekend. I think it was Saturday through Monday. I was night 2. Very fortunate. And she had just done 3 the week prior in Melbourne. So she really goes back to back. But I don't know how she does it. Like, any person talking for 3 hours straight like that for 4 nights in a row must be struggling. So shout out to whatever she's putting on her face every morning, because it works.
There's a content idea. We can do like 4 days of Christmas where we do 3-hour podcasts 4 days in a row on the week of Christmas.
3-hour
And really
podcast.
test
Yeah,
out like
12
how we
days.
compare to the pros.
Let us know in the comments of either Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to, whether you want 3-hour episodes of the Stay Grounded podcast.
Given where the content and subject matter ends up for the last 10 minutes of every 1 hour episode, I can guarantee it will be a spectacle.
I do want to say, and I think we're at the stage where I can confidently say this.
Far
And
away.
This is a big call. Welcome to the biggest podcast of North Lakes.
I reckon we've locked it in.
Welcome to the biggest podcast in the 4509.
It's definitely not.
Who's
Really?
who's
Who
bigger?
else is bigger than us
I
right
don't
now?
remember the name of the pod, but I was at work once and a dude came in that is local and has a pretty big podcast about like self-help and stuff.
Check his home address. Let's get that postcode.
Look, I support everybody's podcast, you know, that kind of attacks different niches. And in today's world, it's very important to have a podcast where you focus on kind of your individual emotional state and yourself as a person, you know, individually. But in the same breath, it's also important to have a podcast where you can, you know, chuck on when you're driving on a Friday afternoon. If you just want to relax and not have to think about anything serious, I like to think this is our podcast to some degree.
Sweet.
That's that's so us.
You know, let's get into a little bit about the last week.
Well, no, hold on. Let's just break down the fit
Oh.
from the man in the middle.
Yep.
Can you walk us through the fit? How much does it cost? What have you got rocking?
I'm a very dedicated fan, if you want to say stan. And I'm very influenced and very, what's the word?
Shaped and conformed
Conformed and
obsessed.
obsessed is probably the perfect word.
It shouldn't be.
I knew we would talk about Taylor
Dependent.
Swift. Dependent for sure. I knew we would talk about Taylor Swift on the podcast today, and I just wanted to balance the forces in the world with an equal and opposite Kanye West.
That's such a good idea for a pod that really tries to bring in everyone.
So what you can see is, I hope you know that I've not been forced or coerced into this outfit. This is completely my own decision. For those who are listening audio only, I urge you to go to the YouTube version and see kind of what is happening.
Skip the 7 minutes just to see what the fit is looking like.
Or the beginning of the pod, because I've been wearing it the whole time.
He has been wearing it the whole episode.
I mean, if they're listening on audio, they got the timestamp right in front of them.
100%.
that is true.
But I
I will
actually...
quickly touch on that. If you are one of the people that are only listening to audio and you haven't tuned into a video one, you are really missing out. I think the quality of content's so much higher when there's cameras on these guys' pretty faces.
3 sexy faces to stare at for an hour.
And I do want to say, like, starting this podcast journey, and I know we're still quite very new into it, and we're
I'm
still
approaching
learning.
retirement.
Yo, so you're pushing retirement.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
My
We'll
knees
get
don't have it anymore.
Now that you've mentioned this, do you want to kind of, touch on what that means?
Yeah, I'm selling my seat. So I personally don't have the time to podcast anymore, but don't do anything you're good at for free. And if there's one thing I'm good at, it's quitting. So if anyone wants to buy my seat, bid starting at $500, DM Stay Grounded Instagram. If anyone takes it, you get my seat. You can be part of the show. If not, I'm here until someone picks that up. You also do get a stake in ownership, as this is quite profitable one day.
So this came as quite a shock to us, and I'm going to be quite candid and honest here about this.
I cried.
We've not discussed this, and it's one of the podcasts where we've actually just chucked on the camera and said, hey, let's just have a conversation with each other. We have learned throughout this week that Phil has a lot on his plate, and there's a lot on his plate that actually is going to propel him in the future to be very successful, and we understand that. Part of the beauty of being an adult and being a mature adult is the ability to prioritize, and at this point in time,
Like your friends.
I completely understand the fact that Phil finds it hard to sort of prioritize everything in his week, and when he does prioritize it, he's been quite candid with us about the fact that he's still here for the podcast, but he might not be here every single week.
Well, it's more so, like, if we're not going to sugarcoat it, I think I'm just outgrowing you guys. Like, I just think I need better friends, and this isn't the place or the kind of people I want to be around every week for
deja
an extended
vu.
amount of time.
Thank the Lord, because I've been thinking the exact same thing for the last
I feel like
2
someone's
years.
already told me that this
So
week.
I will be launching a solo podcast, recording Fridays, uploading Tuesday mornings. It's called the Keep Grounded Podcast.
In the same breath, Josh and I will be continuing this Stay Grounded podcast.
It's the race to 100 followers. So head over to @keepgrounded on Instagram. If you follow this one, follow that one. So it's a fair race. Or I'm going to remove all followers on Stay Grounded before I give up the login.
We do have a sponsor, Orem State, so we've got a bit of a head start.
Shout out to Orem State, fan of the pod.
Launched today, I believe.
Did launch today.
Just for those who need a bit more context.
Social media launched today.
And completely, kind of in the dark here. We are being partially serious when we say when we hit 100 followers, Phil will be kind of stepping away from the podcast.
Where was I for this conversation? What?
Isn't this what you told us in the group chat?
I wasn't being serious.
It's like when Seth MacFarlane stepped away from Family Guy. He was still there every week, putting in the work, but it was just behind the scenes roles were taken away.
I wasn't being... I mean, if there's ever a week that I can't do it, Aaron can take my seat. I don't care. But, I wasn't being serious about
We don't need to.
Praise the Lord. I'm learning something right now live on camera.
If you want me to go, you're going to have to buy me out. I've put too much money into this to just walk.
I'll be honest, I find it hard sometimes to tell when Phil's joking and when he's not.
That doesn't sound like me.
Yeah, I'm with
extremely-
Brandon for
Let's
once.
be honest.
I'm with Brandon.
So Phil's a very jokey character for those who don't know you, and it's quite hard sometimes to separate the joke from the reality. And sometimes when Phil harps on about a joke, or in quotation marks, a joke, you start to kind of ask yourself, is this a joke? Or
Yeah, he's
is
gaslighting
this reality?
us.
A lot of... I do not gaslight.
He is a pro.
I've been gaslit. I do not
He
gaslight.
learns from the best.
No, I've had a lot of issues with that in my life, with people not being able to tell when I'm serious and when I'm not. It's something I probably need to work on, because I think a lot of friendships would be a lot easier if I was.
I think it's to be
Might have one.
honest though, and I want to touch on this a little bit later in the podcast. But
Do it now, mate. Prime time.
okay,
Rip it forward.
and it's something that's been on my mind, and I've been wanting to ask you guys on this whole sort of topic of gaslighting and people kind of struggling to understand whether you're joking or not joking. Do you think you could be friends with someone who just can't understand your sense of humor?
100%.
As in, you could or you couldn't?
I couldn't be friends with someone that doesn't at least understand the type of place I come from with my humor. I can be very sarcastic and very intentionally funny in a way to people that might not know me, could come across as like, that's pretty disrespectful. But it's all in love, and I only do it to people I feel comfortable with. So if I'm making fun of you, it means I love you.
Well, just to be devil's avocado, some people believe
my
that...
favorite type of vegetable,
It's a fruit.
the devil's avocado. Is it really though, Phil?
Yes.
It's got
Because it
a
has a seed in it.
Yes.
My favorite fruit, the avocado. It just doesn't sound like it's.
Well, it's not a vegetable. So, what I was going to say is, some people truly believe that every joke has some meaning behind it.
100%.
So where you can find that you get into trouble in these sorts of situations is if you do strike a nerve, even if you think you have your best interest at heart, that can still rub people the wrong way. And it comes down to, if you don't mean to offend someone but you do, are you still responsible for the action? Because I think you are. I think action and intention are two different things. I think you can be forgiving if it wasn't their intention.
I agree with
But
you.
at the end of the day, the action's still the action. If you didn't mean to upset someone, you still
I
did.
agree with you.
So it's time, put your big boy pants on, Brandon, and apologise to Aaron for what you called him before the show.
What?
What did he say?
What did he say?
I love my brother to the ends of the earth, but I want to
Oh.
touch.
Oh.
I want to touch on what you just said. If someone is your true friend, right, and someone's been friends with you, say for a number of years,
like to what, 2014?
you would expect them to kind of understand your humor to some degree, correct?
100%.
Well, the some degree would probably be them being friends with you for a decade until something rubbed them the wrong way.
So, if you make, for example, if you say something that might rub someone the wrong way, which is normal.
It happens.
I think everyone in everyone's friend group has, experienced a situation where someone said something that you might not appreciate, right? What's your thought process behind, this person's kind of being serious versus this person's joking? And look, I'll be vulnerable and say, in our friendship group, like as in us three, we talk often.
We hate each other on
There
the
is
road.
there's a recurring joke, Phil, that you and I disagree with everything, and it's a joke because it's a joke, but there is obviously some truth behind it.
Of course.
But I know better enough to know, hey, this guy's been
No, you
my
don't.
friend for 12 years. Honestly, nothing you say.
12 years, mate. It's been longer than that.
Maybe longer than that. Nothing you say.
It's been 11.
That's
If you want to correct
Has it
everyone.
actually?
Yeah, it has been 11. I met you.
20
Well, I met you at the end of 2012, but I didn't really mess with you. And then
Jeez.
2013, I had to share a room with you.
This is very true.
Is this in Canberra?
It was
Well-
in Cairnsborough.
I love that place.
My point is, there is a very small sort of window of things you can say that I would take as like serious offense.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you could
Like-
say almost anything to me, and I know that you don't really mean it from a bad perspective.
I never do.
Yeah, well,
That's what I mean. Like, we're that close. We never take things the wrong way. We never go like, oh, you just said that about me.
No, but to circle back, I think it does come down to being accepting of and experiencing different types of people. Because yes, like, you might find it difficult if things that you value, like a sense of humor for you guys, you don't necessarily hit on the exact same level as all of your friends. But if you go through life only interacting with and making efforts with people that you click on 100% levels with, you're going to live a pretty sheltered, small circled life.
agreed.
Yeah, the people around you are the people that shape who you are and how you take the things. So, you know, like, I'm around you guys probably the most out of anyone other than my family. So I think we get along very similarly in terms of jokes and humor, where some people, like at work for say, don't hang around me as much. It takes a bit more, like, you know, that different friend group humor. You got to lock in. You really got to change who you are around others.
Yeah, I think if we can make a stay grounded official public service announcement, I think it's a good time to say, if you are one of those people that thinks, everyone just gets offended these days, everyone's so soft, take a good look in the mirror and really analyze how much of a loser you are.
And
Because
probably,
people are allowed to get offended.
yeah.
Just apologize. Obviously, there's
Oh,
levels
what?
to it. But if you upset someone, just swallow the pill, swallow the ego. Just say, my bad, mate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting, Phil.
I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
Like, this is a message to myself as well, but just do it.
I was talking to someone at my second job this week. It's kind of similar.
Such a weird
Oh,
flex.
Talk about me.
A very similar.
I was just at my 4th job before I came here.
I only have 2 jobs.
I have 6.
Sorry. But I was talking to someone at my second job, very similarly, on a similar sort of conversation. And they were saying how, and if you're listening to this podcast, shout out to you, because you know who you are based on what I'm going to say now.
Yep.
But they were saying how they're super chill, and like nothing that, you know, someone that they know well, there's nothing that they can say that can really like upset them, because they know it's not coming from a bad, you know, from a bad sort of area. And I asked them a question, which is like, how do you sort of tiptoe around the friendships that you feel like, you know, people kind of will take things personally? Because we all have people in our friendship groups, and maybe different friendship groups, that will take things a little bit more personally than what you would take things as. And I know in me personally, and maybe this is a bit of a flaw, but I kind of assume the same mentality that I have for myself for other people.
Yeah, see, I think that's the wrong way to go about it, because part of growing and being an adult is accepting different perspectives and mindsets and opinions. And I'm not saying I'm great at it. Like, I know I'm pretty shit at most of those things, but that's part of growing. Like, you can't just expect or make the assumption that everyone operates the same way you do, because everyone is different in their own way. And that's why I circle it back to, if you just clash with someone on one thing, it's not that hard to just be like, I understand where they're coming from, I didn't mean it, and find some middle ground there. If you want to. You don't have to want to find middle ground with everyone. You can say stuff them and, you know, throw them to the street. But if it's like, I think the worst bit is when someone gets offended and then people get offended at someone getting offended, and then it's just clash. I think someone's just got to be the bigger person and just say sorry, you know?
What
That's
do you-
all it comes down to.
What are your thoughts on people who get offended for other people? Because now, and I know we're kind of unintentionally getting quite deep here, but it's kind of where the conversation is going,
Yeah, I need an example.
right? So, me as someone,
Just don't go too crazy with the examples.
no, like
Just a brief, like a very
yeah,
basic.
yeah. So I can say this because obviously on the podcast I'm a person of color, fair enough, and I have had experiences in my life where people have said or done things to me where I'm actually quite proud of it. So, for example, you know, people kind of, you know, I'm just going to take the example of Indian culture. People who are people who are not Indian kind of supporting the Indian culture, wearing Indian clothes and, like partaking in something that is attributed to Indian culture. And I see that personally as like, that's so dope. Like, I love seeing someone partake in my culture. But on the flip side of that, you could have someone who's not of an Indian culture who sees that as cultural appropriation. What are your thoughts on, if I talk to that person and say, hey, I actually think it's dope, where you think it's sort of an offense. We don't see eye to eye to that. What are kind of your opinions on that?
Well, I think everyone's beliefs are based on their experiences. So if someone does feel that way, they've probably encountered someone or a group of people that don't feel the same way as you do. And I think it's totally fine to stand up for something that you think is right within reason. Like, it is a tricky one because, like you're saying, you being part of the actual culture, like, correct me if I'm assuming, but you probably almost feel like your opinions supersede that of those that aren't.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but I do agree with that, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, opinions are based off experiences, and there's so many different people. Like, you might feel one way, but then X% of your culture might feel the complete opposite. And at the end of the day, it's people just believing in what they believe in. Like, for as many people that agree with the side that you disagree with, there's going to be just as many that see the same way as you.
Very, very fair. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Well, like, very similar, but I think, like, unless you're not yourself personally offended, then you're not really going to get anywhere for someone else being offended by it. Like, there's scenarios where, like, people are standing up for you, which is totally fair. But if it's like, oh, I'm okay with this, I really enjoy this, and then this person's disagreeing, then it becomes more than like a thing like what we've talked about, and becomes more of like a you and that person are disagreeing. So it kind of shifts its focus to another perspective. And I don't really see a point of being offended for somebody if the actual person themselves thinks it's a cool concept or aren't personally offended by it.
Well,
I think, it depends. If it's a singular person and they're not, I think you've got a point. When it is something like an entire culture, that's obviously a really sensitive topic, and it
just gets too tricky at that point. Like, there's too many factors. Like, people have their own beliefs, their own experiences. Like, what I think is different to what you think. Gets hard to really categorize it in one certain little area. So
maybe this is kind of showing my exposure to this, but the one thing that I think of when we have this conversation, I've had this conversation with a bunch of different people, not only you guys, is there's one, my bad.
You can keep going.
There's one Jimmy Kimmel video where he goes, obviously I know they're kind of probably fake to some degree, but
love those guys.
they ask, I can't remember if it was like the Mexican culture or the Asian culture, and then they ask kind of Western people how they feel about Western people dressing in their sort of cultural outfits, and the Western people had a very cultural appropriation sort of opinion to it, and the ethnic people who are part of that culture had a more caring and sort of proud, I guess, opinion on it. Like, how would you guys gauge that?
I mean, I feel like it's getting into the territory of there's certain things I feel like I can't speak on because I am white Eastern European, so there's a lot of cultures I can't speak on the behalf of. So I'm not too sure. Like, I'll probably leave my thoughts at opinions being based off experiences, and I don't see any issue with people trying to speak up or for something if it's for a good cause or within good reason, or it's done tastefully. I've personally never had an issue with that. That's probably as best as I can articulate my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't really feel qualified to speak on the subject there, so I'll hand off to the next person.
It's one of the hard ones, but like, I know those videos are made kind of in a comedy sense or a comedic sense, but when I watch those videos, maybe as a person of culture, I go, oh, like, it is kind of dope that I think both sides there's positives to it, and it's like there's an aspect of respect where it's like, you don't want to culturally appropriate a culture that may not appreciate that, but in the same breath, there is another half of that that's really respecting that and cool.
For sure.
And that kind of leads into my next sort of thing, which is like,
Oh, before you lead to the next, I do have a thought circling back
Yeah.
to the like people getting offended and stuff. So just as an example, say you have a friend, say you do a podcast with them like we do, and say their audio quality is really shit because on top of the mic and the pop filter, they're wearing a mask that suppresses it, and the audio has been coming through extremely quietly for the whole episode. How would you address that without offending them?
has that been the case for the entire podcast?
Yeah, so if it sounded like
We've been
Brandon's
waving
been
you
whispering, we've been
down.
trying to tell him to speak up for the last 15 minutes, and you just could not, he could not hear what we were trying to do.
Did you not see me that whole time waving my hands at you trying to
No, I was looking at Phil and Josh the whole time. I'm not looking at
That's
you.
why I was trying to move your pop filter
we
closer
was-
to the mic, because I thought you'd get the hint.
Oh man,
waving at you trying to get your attention?
Guys, we are so back.
could you hear me though, like a little bit?
Yeah, it was there. We're there.
Are you trying to say fix up your
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the mic picks up a lot, but some things it doesn't pick
I'm
up.
sure our
so
listeners have very qualified and skilled ears.
I hope it
Okay,
picks
look.
up everything in the room, so it doesn't have to be an issue.
Fix it or you just wanna...
No, look, the gig's over. That's fine. If you're watching the
Guys,
visual podcast,
Brandon is actually here. Surprise.
it's actually not Kanye West on the.
Your hair looks like Mr. Bean from the...
Burn.
God.
Burn.
Oh man, what I wanted to touch on is, I know we talk about it kind of often, but it's the fact that we, we kind of have like a, I don't want to say a passion because we don't do it often, but we have a passion for traveling. We enjoy talking about
Wanderlust.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
Chuck Wanderlust in the bio.
Guess where I was this time last week? Not in Brisbane.
Sydney.
Yes,
traveling. Was it
sir.
a better stay than the last time we stayed in Sydney?
I actually forgot we went, and I was like, oh, I went to that restaurant we went to the first day we were there, like with the beef in the hot bowls.
The hot bowl stuff.
Pepper beef.
I went
pepper
there
lunch, pepper lunch.
Because I was on my own for the second morning because the
Yeah.
girls had already left. So I treated myself to
Loser.
a lunch there. It was beautiful. And then I found the record store we went to together.
Wholesome.
That was a little bit far from the actual.
They were very far away. It took a long
Yeah.
time of walking and I was very sweaty. But I didn't have dinner on my bed, which was good.
Is that what we did when we?
I
went
got
there
pranked
time?
last time we were in Sydney together when I was in the shower.
Yeah, but you weren't the only victim, mate.
We've all been there. But no, it was.
I think the only person who didn't get victimized was Phil.
Yeah, what did we do to you? How did
I don't
you
really
get
ever
out
get
of
the
it?
short end of the stick with anything.
That's crazy. What happened to you?
I came out of the bathroom. Oh, and my whole mattress was flipped upside down. So for context, I was in a shower, whatever, and I was there, and obviously like a 10-minute shower, whatever. Come out of the bathroom, and my entire bed, my entire mattress is just completely flipped upside down to where my bed sheets and everything is on the bed frame.
And your bed sheet stunk.
That's crazy.
I think you brought it from home, didn't you?
I'm not a unhygienic guy. I'm a very hygienic person.
You told me shower once every 2 days because the natural oils are better for your skin.
That's rubbish. I'm not one of those people.
Those people. What are you trying to say?
There are some people who really believe that you shower once every 2 days. Or 3
You're the
days.
one that told me that. Were you lying?
I was
kidding.
definitely joking if I said that.
Sharing is the hardest part of the day. But I get through it.
Did we skip over shout outs at the front?
We haven't done any shout outs.
Because this just reminded me, Luke wanted us to shout out the cactus
That's
in
what
the
I was
TV
going to
snack
segue. Let's talk about Year 12 camp.
box. That's not.
Just the one night where we was bunking together.
Alright, tell the story, Josh.
So we were at Year 12 camp. This was what, 2018?
Wait, I don't know what happened. How bad's this get?
No, we won't go too far. So we're in Toowoomba in the mountain range, I believe.
Toowoomba?
Do we ever go to Toowoomba?
It was far away. It was like a 3-hour
that's
bus
where
ride
it
from the
was.
college. And Phil and I were sharing a dorm together. It was us two in a room. Brandon was in a separate room, so he's not part of this. But then it's one night, and he scurries into our room and says, I want to sleep with you boys. And we accept him in with open arms. That's the kind of
Is
guys...
this me or Luke?
This was you.
Oh,
You
okay.
slept on the floor?
So this is the
I
kind of
remember
guy
this.
Phil and I are. We let Brandon in, sleep on the floor. And it's getting close to lights off. And one of the teachers comes knocking the check on us. And Brandon's just standing in the room. So he hides in the cupboard. The teacher comes in, does his check and walks out. So we've got him in. Brandon's here. He's in our room for the night. You know, we're young lads. We're excited. We've got a third member. So we whip some snacks out. I think in particular, We had the what? The cheese Doritos.
Yeah, the red bag.
The red Dorito bag
Cheese
came
Supreme.
out, family size, ready to start this night. And I think Brandon did the honors, of course. Of course it was Brandon. And opened the bag. And what did you find?
I want to just preface the fact that from what I remember, I've actually never opened this bag of chips before.
No, it was sealed.
It was completely
sealed bag of
so
chips.
I don't know how this happened. Like the first time I opened this bag of chips was in front of Phil and Josh.
So you go to grab a handful, and how many chips do you pull out?
I go and grab a handful of chips, as one does, and as I pull out my handful, I actually have, for some reason, like a packaged chocolate cake, just
So no Doritos.
found itself in the chip packet.
You're in denial.
No Doritos were pulled.
Are you saying that I opened that pack before that I?
No,
before I
I'm
ate it
saying
with you
that
guys?
chocolate cake doesn't just sneak up on you. You definitely wanted to wash down your family-sized bag of Doritos with some cake.
Well, it is probably the most cool memory I have of high school is
It's a good.
being in your dorm room at 1 or 2 a.m. And, you know, we're all delirious. If anyone watched the last podcast and wondered why we were a little bit loopy, we filmed that podcast at like 11 p.m. So imagine that
Late night for Josh.
very late.
Oh my god! Let a brother get some sleep.
Imagine that times like, 3 hours. That's what we were at 2 a.m. We're having a very deep conversation within ourselves, and I pull out a chocolate cake.
We were like
from a Doritos bag.
17 as well. We're very young.
Thinking back on that sort of whole
I
story,
think I was 16.
I don't know how the teacher didn't look into my actual dorm room and figure out there was just one person sleeping there and not two.
I mean, you were a kiss ass in school, so they probably just assumed you're doing the right thing.
That's crazy.
And then what's even
That's
funnier?
crazy.
Were you not?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay, I don't want to spend too much time talking about high school, so I'm going to brush over this topic. But when we were in school, our curriculum, the way our system was designed, as you do, you get an assignment, you submit a draft, you get feedback, you apply the feedback from the draft, you submit an assignment. Brandon would submit a draft, get his feedback, organize a meeting with the teacher in their own time, apply the feedback, have another meeting, apply the feedback, have a third meeting,
Teacher's pet.
taking it away from other students, using up the entire 45-minute session for the meeting, apply the third lot of feedback, and then submit it, and then be surprised that he got A's.
All I'm gonna say is, if you're hating on
yeah.
a brother for using the system, that is low key on
No,
you.
you played the system. Just own it. I think you like to act like you didn't do all that.
Look, we had access to, at high school, as was promoted to us, unlimited drafts. The whole
That was not told to regular students like
Yeah,
Josh
it
and
was
I, just for
one
clarification.
draft per
It was one, and
assignment.
if you dare ask for more after one, it was GTFO.
You got looked at you like you're an idiot.
GTFO was crazy. But if you made the time to meet the teacher kind of after school as well, and if you cared about your academia, which I can't say the people to the left or right of me maybe did.
Yeah, it kind of shows when we play sports what you put your time and effort into.
Heck, I made that time and sue me for leveraging my abilities.
But if you look at the kind of category you're in, it's not like you shouldn't be proud of the names you're surrounded by.
Well,
That
yeah,
is okay. We're moving on from that because that is crazy.
that's a very big call to start with.
We'll go
To
back
wrap up
to
the high school stories, yes, there were some funky things in the snacks.
Oh,
Shout
no,
out to
no,
Luke.
no,
He
no.
gave us. You wanted to.
I got a little bit more to add to this. Back to
You've
camp.
got 45 seconds.
Yep. And then about an hour later after this cake, Brandon and I are both still awake. I think Phil's asleep. And Brandon
Sounds
and
like
I are thirsty. And we decide to go get some water.
Oh my goodness.
Which becomes the biggest trip of a little trip to the water break of all time.
To be fair, it wasn't a little trip. So we were at a very isolated, in the middle of nowhere camp, and this is, I don't know if you guys remember, but the boys' dorm area was quite far from like the communal.
Yeah, it was like in the
Yeah.
corner, and it was cold. It was middle of winter.
It was middle of winter, and if you were thirsty, you actually had to walk from your dorm area to kind of the shed area to get water. And at this point now, it's like 2 a.m.
And we hadn't done it before. This is the first night.
and it's completely pitch black because you're in the middle of the country. There's really no lights apart from the sunlight that you rely on during the day. There's no real lights, and Josh and I are like thirsty.
Like parched.
And we had to walk from our dorm room across this like country sort of.
Well, we had to walk past everybody else's doors first,
Yeah.
and then to a little common area, and then outdoors.
Is this leading up to the cactus?
No, the cactus was a
No,
whole
this
different
was a
Oh,
story.
whole-
that's just what I wanted to touch on. That's why I was shouting out Luke. Luke offered us a box of TV snacks. There was a cactus
That was
inside
the
of it.
same night.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
He really wanted us to tell that story, so shout out to you, Luke. I appreciate
What's with
you
these
listening to every
random things in the
episode.
food? It's like we planted it or something, but that's not what happened.
Do you think those year 11 and 12 camps, when you look back on it, do you think they were A, a highlight, and B, do you think they actually helped you in what they were meant to help you in?
No.
Yes and no.
Explain.
Yes, it was a highlight. No, I didn't pick up what they were trying to learn because I don't believe in said beliefs.
You mean beliefs in terms of religious beliefs or like just personal?
Yeah, that's what they were emphasizing on those camps, and my beliefs
That
don't
one was
align
very
with those.
religious, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon memories with the boy, like the memories we made ourselves is what made it a stand
Well, it's the friends
out.
we made along the way, right?
But the whole camp, they were trying to get us to apologize to people I didn't like. And I look back now and I was like, why did I waste 3 days?
We definitely apologized to people that we didn't think we needed to apologize to.
Well, like, it's bad for me because the person I apologized to is absolute disgrace. Like, they should be apologizing to me.
you know, that just shows a level of compassion though. And I think that shows also in parallel, it shows a level of maturity for you.
Yeah, I mean, take it from me. There's some people you'll just never get an apology from.
Oh,
As much as, like, that's the bare minimum. It
Yeah.
just happens, mate. You just put one foot in front of the other, smile, and keep on going.
can't believe that was, what, 6 years ago?
I think a big part of life though is being the bigger person. And a lot of what you do,
That's why you ate the family-sized Doritos.
or the
That
family
covers a
feast,
few topics we've spoken about today. Just being the bigger man.
a lot of what you do, and I think, you know, when you're laying on your deathbed and you're thinking kind of your life, you want to be certain or as close to certain as you can to know that you've done the best that you can do with every situation that you've been given. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you've had to do it or that you were expected to do it, but you've still gone that extra mile to do it, to know that you've done the right thing.
I appreciate your thoughts on death.
Yeah, wow.
That's not necessarily my thoughts on death. That's just my thoughts on living like a fruitful life, to be honest.
No, I feel you.
Very wise, like, very honest.
I want to try something new.
Oh,
What do you mean?
I'm going to get up and leave. No, we
I actually need to use the
I
bathroom.
need
so-
to as well.
we all talked about on, I don't know if it was the last episode or the one before. I don't really keep track anymore. We talked about how none of us celebrate our wins. So I want to hear wins from you guys for this week.
Honestly, I've actually had.
I actually have one. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you
but
go first.
I was
Sorry
thinking.
to cut you off, but let me go.
I
go
don't.
first.
No, you go first. I don't really have anything, so I was like, "Fuck, I'm not gonna have anything," but I do. But
I've actually had a very hard week. Like actually a very hard week, and not only work-wise, but just hard in general. And those weeks happen; they go from time to time. My big wins from the week is I've actually fallen into a proper routine, going back to the gym, and I've really fallen in love with going back to the gym again. Like prior to this week, going to the gym felt like a bit of a chore. I was like, oh, I have to go to the gym because I have to go to the gym, and I was still going, but now I kind of look forward to going to the gym, which is really awesome.
Can I fix your program?
I really enjoy my program. I really do.
What are you doing
When
tomorrow?
I get bored of my program, I'll let you know.
You could stick to a similar thing and refine it. We'll talk about it after the pod.
Yeah.
But
But that's one of my wins. The second win for me was persisting, and there was a few times this week where I was like, oh, you know, like I wasn't really looking forward to the day or to the work and sort of thing. And as I got into the thick of it, I found that my passion is exactly kind of what I'm doing in my full-time job, and it's kind of sort of re-solidified why I do what I do. So those would be the two big wins for me.
well done.
Congrats.
I'm
Very
happy for you.
proud. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Genuinely, that sounds sarcastic when I say it because I normally don't.
Yeah, it's weird.
Shout out, but
you
I'm
usually
happy for
you
you.
usually don't support me, but I appreciate it.
That is not true.
That's crazy.
If my
claims.
business ever needs HR, I'll consider yours.
I appreciate it, bro.
I'll consider it.
Joshua?
Well, I've just got two smaller wins. And they're wins for me because I find it very hard to either start something or commit to something new. The win I was telling Brandon about is the decision I have gone on to regarding selling my car in the next couple of months.
Yes.
Got a couple fixes to do, but then that puppy's off to the shop.
What are you gonna get?
I'm not sure. Brandon asked me the same thing. I've not gone there yet.
Why are you selling it then?
I had a service, and I have my own little guy that comes and services it, and he was giving some feedback, and he was like, you know, a couple more services, it's going to start costing you in price. So I would recommend getting these small repairs done that are due and just moving on and getting a new one. So that'll be the plan. Look forward to that in the next couple months. And also registered my interest, like not even starting, but registered my interest in a online course for studying
Pop off. What course?
property.
Nice.
So I have to still like dive in and go like which way. But in general, I've applied and I've like put down like I'm happy to pay for this online course.
Who's that through?
Like early education or something. Like
Yeah,
it's like
sick.
one of the top ones in Queensland. The
Nice.
property is tricky because there's different states and stuff. So I've done a bit of research and I'm expecting a phone call in the next couple of days.
Pop
So
off.
hopefully-
You wish they would just do emails though. Don't you hate talking on the phone?
Bro, I was like, why do you want my phone number? Just send me an email.
I'm just gonna start putting in 000 so they're forced to email me.
Oh, yeah. Like that was tough. Now I'm thinking about phone call and I'm shaking, so I might pull out.
I'm just gonna have to pause really quick. I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom.
We'll take
Thank
an
you to Brandon
intermission.
for ruining the show.
We'll take an intermission. I do need to go as well,
There we
but we'll
go.
see you guys in 1 second. All right, so we're back. We're feeling refreshed. Sorry about that, guys. We had our middle co-host Brandon with a small bladder syndrome, but we're back, and we'll keep going from where we left off.
This is one of those boys, this is us as a friendship group. And it's part of the personality behind the podcast.
Boys
so-
will be boys. That's what I always say.
Oh,
Will be
appreciate it.
boys.
But picking up from where we left off, I'm going to hand it over to Phil to
Yeah,
kind
we'll
of give,
segue over
give-
to the man on the
give
left.
his perspective on what we were just talking about.
What were we just talking about?
Small wins or wins for the week, as provided by you.
I don't celebrate wins, so we can move on to the next topic.
Come on,
Well,
man.
this is why we're doing it. We want to change the stigma.
It's been a very good week.
You had a big day today, Phil.
I had a big day today, but that's not even what it's about. It's been an exciting week. I want to shout out my barber. Shout out to Awa.
Shout out
from
Awa.
Shout out to Awa.
From Pilgrim Co. Barbershop in Scarborough. For anyone that goes to a barber regularly, you would know that
Like me.
you pay for the haircut, you pay for the conversation and you get a free haircut that comes with it. It's the cheapest therapist you'll find.
Yeah.
And I go every
Don't
2
do it.
weeks, sometimes more often. So, he knows a lot about my life. And he said to me, while I was like just word vomiting about what had happened in the last 2 weeks, he said, "Have you ever taken a step back to just think about what you've done in the last year?" I was like, "Oh, sometimes." He's like, "Nah, like, have you like really had to think about it?" I was like, "No, not really." And I just thought about just this year, like the shit that's happened in the last 6 weeks. So Aurum State has officially launched its social medias, which is a huge step because we can start promoting for the winter release. Obviously, a lot of people I've spoken to know what that is. For those that don't,
Yeah, first time listeners, what is Aurum State?
first time listeners, Aurum State is a company that will be producing a hydration supplement releasing in winter 2024. I've partnered up with my sister Sam, who is an expertise in business and also the global health field. And with my background in exercise science, we've sort of paired our brains up, and then with some dietitian consultants and labs that we've partnered with. And that's really exciting. That's something that, for those that don't know Sam, she's like family above everything, and she's done so well to set her life up that she's always told me and our other sister Amanda that if we have a solid idea for a business and we want to end up working for ourselves one day, she will do what it takes to help us get there if
Shout
we're
out.
willing to put in the work.
Shout out.
Big
Shout out
up,
to Sam.
Big up, Sam.
First
Extra
shout out of the
to her
episode.
because February was a rocky month for myself that I definitely wasn't pulling my weight in the last 4 weeks. She's probably been more patient with me than she should have been, but we're back on track.
New month as well.
Sorry?
New month as well.
New month, new me. Very grateful and appreciative for everything she does for me and for the support that you guys sharing on your stories and people in my personal life. Really, really exciting that that's a step into the direction of the life that I want to build. That also pairs up with my coaching career. I feel like I've really hit the ground running within this week for that. Because I've only been in that industry for less than 6 months. But I feel like I finally feel competent. I have a lot of confidence behind it. I feel like I'm starting to mold into the kind of coach I want to be, and just the feedback that I'm getting. It feels like everything's just lining up at the same time. And the biggest win is that I'm not telling myself something's bad around the corner just because so much stuff is going good. That is a new exercise that I'm practicing with my mind.
First time.
I have a question, and maybe it's if it's too personal, let me know. We don't have to touch
Let's
on
do
it.
it. We're
Cut
5
it.
minutes
We'll
in.
cut
People
it
turned
out.
it off by now.
But
I can't see.
you know, you said February was a bit of a rocky month for you, which is normal. Everyone, you know, you go through ups and downs and peaks and troughs, and that's part of life. As a side note to what I'm going to ask Phil, I want to highlight the fact that peaks and troughs in life is very normal. So if you currently are experiencing a peak or a trough, you know, regardless of what it is, if it's a trough, remember that you're going to come out of it to start with, and it's not all the time, and it's just a phase. And if you're at a peak, remember to ride that. Enjoy it. Really be grateful for the peak, because
celebrate those good times.
if you want success and if you want true achievement, it's going to come with troughs. And I'm not here to be a pessimist, but that's just the truth of it. Leading on from that, I want to find out from you, how much do you think, or how much can you attribute February being a rocky month to self-sabotage?
That's a really good question.
Wow.
I know it's a deep one, but it's one that I kind of ask myself often. It's like, you know, I'll give you time to think about it while I talk, but when I set a goal for myself, which I have, and these two know that I have a lot of goals for myself.
A lot.
I tend to try my best to avoid the trap of self-sabotage, which is, you know, I don't want to say talking down yourself, but kind of highlighting areas where you may fail, because failure is a part of everyone's journey. But self-sabotage to me is focusing on the failures and really, you know, kind of worrying a little bit about what could happen in a negative way.
Yeah, I do that a lot in every aspect of life, to be honest. But the biggest learning curve for February for me was realizing that I'm chasing stress, and it's a really unhealthy habit to get into. The thing that I learned is you don't get a gold medal for being the busiest person alive or sleeping the least out of everyone you know, and you don't chase stress to get to where you want to be, because if you have big goals and ambitions, the stress will come when you put your energy and time into the right places, and at least in that way it's productive versus just drowning yourself in a lot of work. Like I've spoken on the pod the stuff that I do, so I don't need to rehash it, but it's a matter of priorities and realizing the 2 or 3 things that I don't need at all and I can just drop, and it's just a matter of I don't like quitting things because that feels like failure in a way, but it is really just growth and needing to step into another chapter. Because this week particular, the whole week up until now, I didn't work at all at the jobs that I don't need, or the jobs that aren't for my career, the jobs I've just kept for a while. And it's the best week I've had in the longest time, because I just felt not only productive, but I used the word competence before, but it's like just a taste of what my life's going to look like. And I just want to like eat that shit up now.
Well, I think it's important, right? Like the jobs that you have had for the last, now kind of moving on to 6 years.
I don't
Right?
have to say that, but
No, but
6
to me, that's not a bad thing. That means, to me, again, when I look at that, I go, this person's dedicated. Like they've invested skills, time, effort, experience into something that they can really master and have sort of like a constant for them.
I appreciate how you're putting it in that positive light, but I think I should be critical of myself because I don't know how to quit things. And that's not a healthy habit to get into, because it's not just work. It's not just external commitments. It comes down to life and relationships and stuff like that. Like I've never known when to quit things when I've needed to. And that never ends well. Always ends up running you into the ground one way or another. So yeah, that'll be the challenge for the next months. Like I've accepted that I need to do that, but it's a matter of actually doing it. Like I could very well say it and then be there another year. I don't want to be, but that's just, I know that that's the issue and the hole that I dig myself a lot.
I think the beauty behind the position that you find yourself in is and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be very wrong, I'm just making quite a general assumption here. You have 50% of your life that you know has been a constant for you, and that's kind of helped you get stability for the last who knows how long, quite a long time. And now you're in a chapter of your life where you're looking really towards the next 10, 15, 20 years of your life, and you know where your passions lie, but you need that stability, and what's been working for you for the last 5, 6 years to support your future. And personally, I don't think that's a negative thing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But it is a matter of priorities, and sacrifice does come into being successful at things. Like obviously having 4 jobs, I quit 2, like income goes down. Like I'll be fine, but it's obviously a lot less than I'd be getting. And that's kind of just another challenge to overcome. But again, it's putting that stress and that state of being uncomfortable into something productive that's going to net more long term than just crashing and burning out. Because even like we mentioned before that we all have the idea of traveling. I still want to travel this year. I want to travel every chance I get. But it was like literally the difference between of like being I need to get out of here to like, okay, like one foot in front of the other, like let's keep on going and still give myself that, because I need that as an outlet, and I find it very inspiring whenever I do that. Just seeing different cultures and perspectives and whatnot, but it's not like running away from my problems.
I want to say it's really motivating to see, like as a friend, you know, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't like the whole saying of being on the sideline, because I know we're quite tight knit, and I know with our friend group we're like, you know, if one of us is succeeding or wanting to succeed, we want all of us to succeed. But being on the sideline and seeing that, and you know, kind of seeing your, I don't want to say your goals shift, but your priorities shift.
Goals and priorities.
Yeah, it's a very motivating thing. And for me myself, where I'm trying to, you know, I'm in the process of starting and have started my own thing, which maybe we'll get to one week. Not there yet, but we'll get there one week. It is super motivating, and
Thank you.
seeing you take the steps that you already have with your family, and you know, kind of involving someone who's been a part of your journey from day dot. You know, someone who's been with you through the thick, the thin, you maturing, becoming this, you know, young male that you are, that's dope, and I commend you for that.
Thank you. It is a really good feeling to know that like people like that have your back whenever. Like the last 12 months, I've said it a million times, I'm a completely different person to who I was before. There was absolutely no reason for Sam to ever do any kind of stuff for me like that. Like at its worst, I've been like a horrible family member to her at times. And, you know, I can blame it on a million different reasons or circumstances or the situation that I was in, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to choices and decision making, and I made some really bad decisions, and it would have been easy for her to hold that against me for the rest of my life. But, like, never for a second even did. Like, didn't even have to talk about it. I remember the first time I saw her after we obviously went in contact for a while. It was when I flew down to Melbourne, because I was like, it's not going to happen by itself. And I was sitting in the car with her, and we'd been making small talk for a couple of days, because it was a bit awkward, because we hadn't talked in like basically years. And I tried to like build up the courage to apologize, which was like a really like uncomfortable thing. Like voice starts shaking and shit, and she's like, "It's fine. Like, you don't ever need to say that."
Wow. Another shout out to Sam, man.
Double shout out.
Sam, man.
Shout out to all the amazing women that I'm surrounded by.
Women.
Family's full of them, and I find it very inspiring.
And before I chuck it over to Josh, because I actually have a question for you, Josh.
Actually, before we move on, I do want to just say that both of you have, especially this year, have been very inspiring, and I commend you both for the two things you've both embarked on, both professionally and personally. It is very motivating for myself to do more and do better, especially someone that is pretty comfortable after going through a lot previous years. So shout out to the two fellas to the left of me.
It's a room of love today. Before I chuck it over to you, Josh, I wanted to just touch on two final things based on what you said. It's a two-pronged thing, in my opinion. The first prong is you being mature enough to understand that, you know, I'm not perfect. And the second prong, which kind of ties into the whole family aspect, is, and you're very blessed with the fact that you have Sam, who's an older sister, to kind of have that maturity to say, look, Phil, it's all right. Like, I completely understand.
Yeah, that support is crazy.
That support is insane. And, you know, I think through it all, if there's one thing that sticks out to you, it's the fact that, yeah, it's two-pronged. You've done your bit. which is a hard thing to do, which is, as you said, the whole sort of your voice shakes and having to apologize. That's hard in itself. But the second part of it is having someone who's receptive to it and be like, hey, bro, honestly, you don't even need to apologize because regardless of it, you're my brother and I'm here to support you no matter what.
Yeah, well, I'm real lucky that she's like the most understanding person I've ever met of the situation that I went through. Like, I'll never have to explain myself to her about anything, which helped personal growth a lot. Like, I know I'll wrap up my thing because I've been talking about myself for too long.
Pop off, King.
But all my points have been about professional growth, but the personal growth where, like, last year I was aware and it felt like a lot of personal growth. I wasn't expecting that this year. But even just, I learned how to trust people again this year. And that was huge, like being able to actually let my guard down around people and be vulnerable. That's been a big learning curve that I didn't think I needed to do. But I'm starting to feel normal again.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'll throw it over
So
you.
shout
Throw it
out
over
to the
you,
people that
Josh.
helped with that because
Shout out to
they all know who
support
they are.
groups.
I want to hear from you because you're
Hello,
you're
I am still here.
in a very loving way. You're actually a very interesting character, and I love learning a lot about you. And
Yeah.
I would assume so does the audience. And I just want to preface this by we've actually kind of unintentionally we've gone into an episode that's quite, again, another vulnerable episode.
I haven't made a
Yeah, we
joke in
can't help
so
ourselves.
long.
Which is, I think, and before we touch on Josh's kind of aspect of it, that's the beauty of the Stay Grounded podcast is,
We're all very unique individuals.
yeah, and I know that our name is to stay grounded, but we find ourselves every episode really staying grounded. But before we touch on that, Josh, you've had a very, I don't want to say a big change, but I have seen in you, if I'm being honest, I've seen a very big sort of leap in motivation over the last couple of weeks. And I want to find
Wow.
out from you, what was the motivation to it and what's kind of helped you get to that point? Because I know you're the kind of person where when you put your mind to it, it's game over, dog. But I'm very proud, that you've put your mind to it, but I want to kind of know the thinking behind what helped you get there.
Well, firstly, I do appreciate that. It is very nice to hear. I am someone that does like to hear those kind of words because I think I do struggle with thinking that myself. And I feel like that's probably my biggest thing is like finding reasons to stay motivated or feeling like I'm succeeding in life when really I'm quite young and put a lot of pressure on myself. But I think like what I touched on, like my last comments, it is like I've got that support group and just like this two of you boys have been really motivating and like making sure I don't get too comfortable with myself. Because like, again, I am quite young, so I could just settle with what I'm doing right now because it is currently more than enough to just let go and set myself back and just keep doing consistently. But I am now more motivated than ever to kind of focus long term and start getting an idea of what I want to do and challenge myself to do more. Where in previous years it's been like what can I do short term to make sure that I am all right. But obviously, other than like the motivation and the group around me, like both Kristen, her family, and my family have been probably the other factors other than you two, who always have supported me when I don't always have supported myself. But I think otherwise it has been just a shift of like going through a lot the previous years where it has been more like a short-term survival compared to now where I know I'm comfortable now and I am in a good spot, so I can kind of look past that to more of a long-term situation. Which hopefully this year, some of the magic happens.
100%.
Because that's probably the big thing right now. Like I have these goals and ambitions and I am focused long term, but it's now like actually doing it is the scary thing and just what I need to start doing so I am more comfortable. Because I know once I have started it, like once I start something, I'm locked in and I will push through and I'll commit everything to it and I am a very hard worker. But it is just starting something new, which I find probably the most challenging. So it's more of overcoming that personal struggle.
And both of us have had the pleasure of knowing you personally and professionally.
I was a sack of potatoes this time 5 years ago. So
5 years ago? I can't even remember 5 years ago. What the heck? But touching on what you said about, you're a hard worker. And I know we had a conversation about this before the pod when you and I were just hanging out. Phil and I have both had the pleasure of knowing you on a professional level, which people kind of overlook how important that is. Personal level is cool and it's a friendship, but when you are able to work with someone like Phil currently does with you, and I have done in the past, it really shows someone's character when they can separate not only the friendship from the professional relationship, but it really shows kind of who you are as a person. And I think that's really commendable because in my field of work and in what I do, I know how easy it is to get those lines blurred.
Yeah.
But through it all, you kind of, you have a very clear definition of, hey, these are my friends. And at the same time, when it needs to be, these are my professional colleagues at the same time.
That's been like, especially like personal, like goals the last, again, like still having some short-term goals. It has been being able to split the different personalities and stuff I can have. Because I know very, like naturally I am very lighthearted, very, very chill. But I do know I can hold myself professionally in certain situations, and it has been more of making an effort to be more aware of that side of me. Obviously, outside of you guys, with people that don't know me as well, at work, being a leader, obviously a manager in a retail job, because it is skills that I want to be able to transfer over to a new set of line of work or new set of skills, which is something I've never really been confident in. Like, I've never had faith in myself to be anything other than like the funny friend. So being able to step back from that and focus on other areas of my personality and my attitude has been a big learning point these last 12 months, especially in my relationship, which has probably been the biggest factor. Kristen is very good at holding me accountable with communicating feelings and getting serious when we need to be, which I think applies to work and other things. Because especially as being a leader, I don't want to be the millennial that is like, just do your own thing. I'm literally just getting paid more than you. But also don't want to be the real serious, like, micromanager that is just being an asshole for 8 hours.
It's a hard balance, isn't it?
Yeah, and I at this age as well, it's weird. Like, I hate being in charge of people that are older than me. I find it so hard to be the boss of someone older than me. So that's probably been the biggest learning curve with all the people I've worked with is, taking accountability and knowing, like, I am in charge. I have to be responsible here. So a lot of learning situations this year, which has probably paid off, hopefully, for the long run.
I think it's going to be a very great year for all three of us. And I really hope that, I know this is such a small part of people's weeks, but to us, it's quite a big part. Like, we set a lot of time aside each week.
Brandon cancelled 7 other plans to do this.
I don't want to touch on that, but, we could all be doing different things tonight. But we've made the commitment not only to each other, but we know and we've heard that stuff like this really helps people. And I'm grateful that we've made the time and really prioritized this. So, I'll be honest, today was meant to be a bit of a fun episode.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I do want to add a closing thought, actually, because this episode being uploaded on Tuesday will be the last episode that we post before International Women's Day, which will be on Friday the 8th of March.
100%.
And I think it's a good time to touch on that because we've all spoken about some female role models in our life. Obviously, Josh with Kristen and the support that she's given you. And we've obviously met your mum, who's lovely, and Brandon and Aaron with
Shout
Kim,
out.
who's also a beautiful
Shout
mother.
out to the mothers.
And then everything Sam's done for me, and Amanda, who I look up to, and my mum, who I love dearly. All the women in
Shout
our
out.
lives that are very strong and successful and powerful. You're not only inspiring other women and continuing to push that and fight that fight, but also inspires people like us, seeing you do those things for us, around us, with us.
They are the reason. The women in my life are the reason I want to be better. So shout out to the women.
I've always said, like, so much of the reason I am the way I am, and I think the positive traits I have is I grew up around some of like the strongest female role models I'll ever meet in my life. And I always believe that men need female role models as well as male role models. So I think that's why it's so important for us to celebrate that day. And if you are the kind of person that's asking any of your mates or anyone at work, when's International Men's Day, you're an idiot.
Every other day of the year.
It's been the other 364 for the last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Stop being such an entitled and privileged prick.
Taking
We don't
things
mess
for
with
granted.
that. If that's you, please unsubscribe.
Unfollow.
And those were my closing thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. And just to cap off, really shout out to all the women that we've mentioned or not mentioned. Every female in our life has played a role in some degree.
Can I interrupt? Sorry, I listed some of the women in our lives, but I also forgot some, obviously, with Chanel and Gavinella, who are amazing and support this.
The New
And
Zealand
Josh,
crew.
you've also got a lovely younger sister. That's the trouble when you list names, is
It's
you always
hard,
forget
yeah.
someone. I
And they're all
literally
listening.
mean everyone that has an impact on our
Yeah.
lives or other people's
Yeah.
lives. You're all amazing women,
I
and we love
think-
and appreciate you.
You guys don't really realize, and us as men might need to get better at it, but you guys don't realize how much on an emotional standpoint you actually help us grow.
So much.
And it's not something that we usually talk about often, but I think in our own personal lives, when we do our own reflection, for me personally, it's very, very obvious how my level of maturity takes a step up when I'm talking to the right female figures in my life.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you say, the emotional part of it that you don't necessarily get from talking to other guys of similar mindsets, like even just the stuff I went through last year and the women that were around me, that really helped with that. Or how I spoke about before, learning to trust and let my guard down with people as well. That was also some amazing women that helped me through that. So shout out to all of you. We love you. Big fans of you at the Stay Grounded Pod. And that's all I've got to add.
Yeah, like just adding on, I think you've covered it, but like wouldn't be here without the women in my life. And pretty much all the key traits I've learnt have been from women in my life, being family members, siblings, like leaders from other jobs I've had. I'm very grateful to have been surrounded by a lot of strong women, and currently Kristen. So shout out to Kristen.
Yeah. So happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day, everyone.
We will be celebrating the success of women every day. It's not just March 8th and never again. 365, 24/7.
With that being said, it's been quite an unorthodox episode of the Stay Grounded podcast.
Got tears in my eyes.
But I'm being honest, man.
3 episodes in a row, mate.
yeah, there's
You
no.
might need to
the
start
other-
rocking some sunnies.
or get some tissues to
I'll
be put
put
part of
mask
the furniture
back
at this
on.
point.
Other
mate.
last episodes because I was yawning,
Look,
but this is a bit of both. I'll be honest.
definitely and I appreciate you being honest, but definitely an unorthodox episode. But honestly, part of why we started this podcast was to kind of give an insight onto our friendship.
Because
I hope this episode kind of gave you two halves of what our friendship is like.
Well, just a quick shout out again to Joe. He was the one that came in to visit me at work and did mention especially at our age group, we are getting better at it with regards to talking about our feelings, but how important it is to be open about it with others. So hope everyone here listens and understands just how okay it is to be vulnerable at points in your life.
That's 5 Joe shout-outs in 9 episodes.
Shout out to Joe,
He's going to
man.
start asking for money soon, so that might be the last one for a while, but we love and appreciate you, Joe. Speaking of International Women's Day, shout out to your beautiful wife and your daughter. We love the Hamrick family.
Any cherry ripes I'll come give to you, Tonya. So,
With that being said, next week we'll be back as usual. Hopefully, probably for a more regular Stay Grounded podcast episode.
I think this is regular at the moment. I think we're too far gone.
Yeah,
I
agree with you.
don't know how many one-liners I pulled out today. I'm
With-
not gonna have any fans.
With all that being said, we really appreciate you guys tuning in with us.
Oh.
Whatever came out of this podcast, all I know is that personally, I've genuinely had a really good time today. And it's been a great episode.
It's been a ball.
I hope you guys have experienced the same thing. Whatever's happening in your week, good, bad, challenging, stressful, just remember that you can get through it.
We're here for you as well.
And there's what I want to wrap up with is there's no challenge that comes your way that you cannot overcome. And every challenge is put in front of you because you can overcome it. Prove to yourself that you can and have faith in yourself.
Yep. You see a challenge, you go over, under, around it, or you just go through it sometimes.
Keep engaging. Obviously we appreciate it. We're nearing on the 100 follower count. When we get to there, the giveaway is active, so we'll keep you guys updated. But as always, have a great week. From Phil, from Josh, from myself. Take care and brush your hair.
You heard?
Thank you guys.
So, see you next week.
Bad at whip.